Hi there, this is Jessica at New Mexico Wildlife Center. I am the education team leader here. And in case you missed our announcement last week, we have decided to start producing an educational video series that highlights different topics surrounding wildlife that you can find in your own backyard or around northern New Mexico. This week, we decided everyone's probably getting a little bit bored at home, maybe watched The Office a little too many times. And so we want to talk about how you can start wildlife watching in your own backyard and how you can facilitate wildlife into your own backyard. This not only benefits your mental health and your boredom, but it's also really important since a huge cause of population decline is habitat loss due to urban and residential development. So by modifying your own backyard to facilitate wildlife, you could be benefiting them as well as your own sanity. So the first place I really want to start is birds. I am a huge bird person. I love birds, and they also are some of the easiest wildlife to attract to your own backyard. There's also a ton of resources online, bird guides, everything that you can use in order to identify species, and also how to modify your own backyard, what seeds to use in bird feeders in order to attract species. So they're a great place to start in terms of wildlife watching. So obviously the thing that everyone knows about attracting birds to the backyard is bird feeders. But there are a lot of different variety in different types of bird feeders. So classic bird feeders are the ones that have seeds in them. So one like this one. So this is a classic one. There's some tiny little seeds in this called thistle seeds. They're very, very tiny, and they attract really tiny little birds. So you'll get finches, you'll get some goldfinches, sparrows, lots of little type of birds with this one. That's one of my favorites, just because those birds are all over the place, and it's just a matter of getting them to your backyard. Another really common one is these bigger feeders for sunflower seed. And sunflower seed is great because so many different species love sunflower seeds. You'll get tiny little birds such as dark-eyed juncos, all the way up to scrub jays, maybe a few nuthatches, tons of different, basically if they're a seed-eating bird, you will get them with the sunflower. Some people don't like the mess that the shells will create from the sunflower, but they do actually make sunflower pieces that are already shelled and cut up, and so those are useful as well. There are some other useful things as well. This is a nice easy one. It's basically seed already pre-filled in kind of a stocking, and so this will get some finches and sparrows as well. And suet. Suet is a really high fat feed that you can put out, and you will attract a lot of some really cool birds like woodpeckers and flickers with this. And it's really easy, doesn't create as much of a mess. You can place it on kind of a platform for them as well. If you're looking to attract some really colorful birds like orioles or tanagers, something that's really fun to do is to take an orange, chop it in half, and place it out on a platform feeder, and you can actually you can see the orioles come and get into all that juice and nectar from the oranges. So that's a great one as well. Dried mealworms are another little snack you can place out in your feeders. Those will get some of the insectivorous birds like bluebirds. You can also mix in some nuts with your feed. So here is some peanuts that we have mixed in with some sunflowers. So that's good for attracting some other good species as well. So those are kind of the really common seeds. Of course, there's a lot more that you can use. It's important with all feeders to clean them as well. I forgot to mention that. With the seed feeders, with the platform feeders, it's important to clean that every time you refill it, because there are some diseases that can be transmitted between birds. It's also important that you collect, you kind of rake up the seeds that are underneath the feeders in order to prevent that bacterial, the disease transmission as well. I do want to touch on hummingbird feeders for a second. They're great. They're really cool to attract hummingbirds. Everyone loves hummingbirds. It's really important that you maintain those though. Our hospital staff did a great post on our Facebook page recently about the importance of cleaning hummingbird feeders. So basically, once a week, you should really be cleaning that feeder to ensure that you're not facilitating any bacterial growth or disease transmission between hummingbirds. It's also important that you're making the correct solution in it for the hummingbirds. So it's going to be 1 cup or 1 part refined white sugar to 4 parts water. And it's important that that water has been heated up to the point that the sugar dissolves completely. So bird feeders, really common thing that people like to use. Another one are bird baths. So these are great for providing water and a place to cool birds down during the summer, the hot, dry summer months. Just like with the feeder, it's really important that you clean that between refilling. There's a lot of diseases that can be transmitted through those bird baths, so be sure you're cleaning that out. Something that's really important to note about when you're promoting wildlife in your own backyard is your domestic pets. So it's really important that you keep your cats inside. That is a huge cause for population declines in birds and reptiles and insects due to hunting. And so it's really important that those cats are kept inside. If you have a dog and you want to promote wildlife in your backyard, it's important to take some considerations. So one being your bird feeders should be placed at a higher level than some bird feeders. I have a stand in my backyard that is probably about 6 feet high, and I have a dog and she cannot reach that height. So now that I've told you some of the ways to facilitate wildlife in your backyard, I'm going to touch on some pointers for anyone who is new to wildlife watching. In terms of bird watching in your backyard, if you can place your feeders, bird baths, or plants closer to windows, that could be useful for identifying and seeing them clearly, but it could also cause more window collisions with birds, and that's a huge problem that we see. One way of fixing that is you can get tape that you put on the windows in order for the birds to see clearly that that is a window and not a portal to a different area. So that's one way. Another very simple way is putting those feeders and bird baths away from the windows and getting yourself a pair of binoculars. They don't have to be fancy binoculars, especially if you're just looking in your backyard, but binoculars are really useful at getting really close details from the birds so that you can identify them correctly. A lot of birds look very similar, so being able to see them clearly and see how different they are important. In terms of guides, my favorite bird guide that I have used is the National Geographic Field Guide to the Birds of North America. This is a really nice beginner bird guide. There's great pictures in it of the species, and so it's a really nice guide for beginning birders, and it will encompass everything that you'll see in your backyard. There are also bird guides specific to to New Mexico that you could find, but this one is definitely one of my favorites. Lastly, I want to touch on if you're going to be welcoming wildlife into your backyard, be sure to respect their space and do not try to catch or handle them. Just observe them from a safe distance away. Unless they're sick or injured, in which case you should call either New Mexico Wildlife Center or your local wildlife center to get advice on how to properly capture and handle the wildlife for transportation to a wildlife center. Thank you so much for watching our first educational series video. Next week, we're going to continue on this topic and focus on birds that are going to be nesting in your backyards right about now. And we're actually going to be going around and showing you all the different species that are nesting at New Mexico Wildlife Center right now. We have a ton of different species. I'm looking at a curve-billed thrasher who is nesting in our ceiling over there. And so we're going to show you some of those. We're going to talk about how you can effectively prevent disturbing them while they're nesting and how to identify different nests. So thank you so much, and we will see you soon. Hi there, this is Jessica from New Mexico Wildlife Center. This is our second educational video, and today we're going to be talking about birds nesting in your backyard. I am super excited to talk about this one. I myself have done research on nesting birds. I've been a part of a lot of other projects that have studied birds nesting, and so this one is near and dear to my heart. So I'm super excited about this one. To start, I'm going to show you all of the birds that are nesting on grounds here at New Mexico Wildlife Center in our own backyard. We have so many different species here. You'll notice that what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be showing you what's actually going on in the nests. Like I said, I have a lot of experience with birds nesting. I'm a trained professional. It's really important that you do not disturb nests in your own backyard. Any disturbance could cause them to abandon, and that means that the babies could die without care from their parents. So while I'm doing this, it is not recommended that you go look at closely at the nests in your own backyard. How I'm going to approach this is I have my pair of binoculars right here, and I station myself a good distance away from the nest so that I can see the nest clearly, but that I am not a threat to the parents. And I essentially station myself, we've got a little fight going on over here, but with some Say's Phoebes. There's quite a few of them nesting on grounds, and there's a lot of territorial battles going on. So you'll see I have my binoculars here. So what I'm going to do is station myself far away from the nests, watch them carefully, and when I see the parents naturally leave the nest, then I quickly go to the nest quietly. I have this GoPro on an extension stick right now, and so I can peer up into the nest really, really quickly. You'll see all the videos I have are really short snippets. So I get a quick little video and then I retreat away. I do want to talk a little bit about what you can do to prevent abandonment in your own backyard. But first, I'm going to show you some of our birds. So the first nest I'm going to show you is a curved-billed thrasher nest. So we have a curved-billed thrasher up here. I've also seen a lot more around our property, so I'm sure there's other nests that we're not aware of. But this one is very clearly up under the eaves of our patio. Curved-billed thrashers usually build nests in trees, shrubs, or other plants, but this one decided to build its nest on the ledge of our patio. Their nests are usually a base of messy twigs placed together with grass lining the interior of the nest. Their eggs are usually a bluish-green color, and they can lay 3 to 5 eggs. Looks like this one has 4 nestlings in the nest. So that was a super cool curved-billed thrasher nest. The next one I want to show you, we have quite a few house sparrow nests around here. House sparrows are cavity nesters. They will take advantage of anything that is remotely a cavity. And so we have quite a few on the outside, similar to where our curved-billed thrasher is. So if we go over here near our kid room, on the edge of our kid room here, their nests are usually built with grass and twigs and anything string or twine-like. Their little eggs range in color, but are generally a lighter cream color with a lot of brown splotching. So you might have seen in that video that there was nothing in that house sparrow nest, and that is actually because a coach whip, which is a type of snake, came through the other day. We found it in the house sparrow nest, and it had apparently gotten itself a meal. We're not sure what was in the nest, eggs or nestlings, but either one is a good snack for a snake. So another nest I want to show you is one that is in our rehabilitation area in a tree. This tree behind me over here has a greater roadrunner nest in there, and they've been here for the past few years. This is their second time using this nest in this tree, and it's been really fun watching the pair court each other. They have been very, very visible this entire time. We frequently see them mating, having other food begging behavior from the female to the male, as well as the male running by with food, bringing to the female. So it's been really fun to watch these two over the season. And right now the female is on the nest, which is why I'm talking a little bit quieter. So here you see the female on the nest. This is the only nest that I am taking a video of with the female on the nest, because I know that these individuals are very, very habituated to our presence. So I know she's not showing any sign of stress. The next nest I'm going to show you is one that apparently is a return from last year. It is a Say's Phoebe nest. So we have one up under a building that we use to store a lot of our cleaning stuff. And unfortunately, this is a really bad location for this bird to nest. And I'm sure a lot of people have similar problems where birds decide to nest right above a front door, right above a garage door, right above a walkway that you constantly go to. And sometimes you can't help it. Sometimes you can't help but flush that bird. The best way of approaching situations like that, if you can't avoid walking by that nest that's in your backyard, go as quickly and quietly as possible and do not make eye contact with the bird. Make yourself look as least amount of a predator as you possibly can. I have a house finch nesting in my backyard, right along the path that I have to walk by every single day to leave and arrive. And we've she's kind of gotten to know that I'm not going to be a predator to her. She always stays in the nest when I walk by. I walk by quickly. And I always glance back once I pass to make sure she's still in there, and she always is. So sometimes you can make it work. So we have a Say's Phoebe nest up here. So Say's Phoebes like to nest on ledges, and Say's Phoebes make nests out of little twigs, feathers. You'll see some twine up in there, as well as some fur, some grass. And this one actually does have some eggs in it, so that's super cool. There's 4 eggs there, so that's awesome. The next nest I'm going to show you is a mountain bluebird nest, and this one is very interesting. It took us a while to find because it's actually up inside the roof of one of the main buildings we have our tools and cleaning stuff in. So let's go check that out right now. So they are up in here, up inside this crevice, so you can see that nest up there. Very cool. And mountain bluebirds are secondary cavity nesters, so that means that they take advantage of cavities that are already made, and their nests are usually made out of some grass and twigs and things like that. Their eggs are generally, like their name suggests, a light bluish color, and they usually lay about 4 to 6 eggs. So those are some of the birds that we have nesting around our property here at New Mexico Wildlife Center. There are so many other species that are nesting around northern New Mexico, and I'm sure you all have some nesting in your own backyard. So I do want to give a little bit of advice on how, if you have birds nesting in your backyard, you can make sure they have the most successful breeding season they can have. The first thing you can do is avoid pruning and trimming any trees, shrubs, or plants right now. Even little plants. Hummingbird nests are so tiny, sometimes they're really hard to find in little plants. And so avoiding pruning or trimming right now is such a great way of avoiding accidental removal of nests. Generally, breeding season for birds is March to August. That is completely dependent on the species and the individual. But if you avoid March to August, any pruning or trimming, that's a good way of avoiding anything from going wrong. The second thing you can do, and I already touched on it a little bit, is trying to avoid disturbance to the nests. If you can find a different route to walk to your car or to walk to the sidewalk around a nest, that would be great. Like I said, if you can't, which sometimes it's unavoidable, the best thing you can do is to be very, very quiet, to keep your head down, and to just walk as quickly as possible by the nest, trying not to give any indication that you are a predator to the bird. If you do want to observe the nest, the best way of doing that is from a distance. Like I said, I'm a trained professional, so in order to prevent disturbance, keep yourself at a good distance away, and make sure you don't have more than 2 people with you. A large group of people can be very, very intimidating to those birds. Lastly, and most importantly, the best thing you can do to help baby birds is keep them with their wild parents. I'm sure you've been seeing a lot of our posts about how crazy our hospital is right now in terms of the amount of baby birds we have. It is baby bird season, and sometimes it's inevitable. Sometimes you have to bring us baby birds, but the wild parents will always be the best parents. So there are some times when you should not pick up and bring baby birds to us. Firstly, if they are nestlings, which means that they have skin exposed, they're not fully feathered yet, they kind of look pink and tiny most of the time, a lot of the songbirds do. If you find one of those under the nest, the best thing you can do is to put it back up in the nest. Hopefully the parent returns. What you can do is you can kind of station yourself away from the nest, watch the nest for a few hours and make sure that the parents return. If the parents return, great. Leave that baby there. It will be fine. My house finch nest in my backyard, I found it tipped over on the ground the other day. It looks like it had been blown down overnight. The babies were still alive, so I put it back in the nest, placed it back up. I stationed myself out, and the mama came back within a couple hours, and it's been a few days now, and they're doing great. So that was the best thing I could do for them, was to put them back. Fledglings are generally very, very close to being completely out of the nest and flying. Fledglings, when they're almost ready to leave the nest, what they can do is they can get a little antsy, they get hoppy, they test out their wings, and sometimes they jump out of the nest. We frequently get calls about fledglings that are found down under the nest. If there's no injuries, if you don't see any obvious injuries to their wings or legs or anything, the best thing you can do is put them back in the nest. Now, I know I keep saying put them back into the nest, and what if that nest is at the very top of a pinyon tree and you cannot reach it? We have some advice on our website about how you can make a little basket or a Tupperware container and secure it as close to the nest as possible. And again, watch it, make sure the parents return to take care of the nestlings. But that's the best way we can keep those babies with their wild parents. If you do find nestlings that have been abandoned, if you've watched the nest for hours and don't see the parents return, or if you've found the parents dead somewhere, the best thing you can do is call your local wildlife center or New Mexico Wildlife Center and get advice on what the best procedure is. Most of the time, we will tell you to bring them to us if the parents are gone. Well, I could talk for hours about nesting birds, but no one wants to hear that. So that's the gist of it. That is the overview of how to deal with birds nesting in your backyard. If you have any questions or comments, please feel free to comment on our video on Facebook. If you have any questions about birds nesting in your backyard or any concerns, please feel free to email or call us here at New Mexico Wildlife Center. Thank you so much for watching our second educational video, and be sure to watch our next one next week. Thank you.